went into stores. But Mark went eating those seats.
Really?
Yeah.
Kylie, that week you off some quarters from her roommate's house. She said, no, it's special. Yeah, there was no mask on the piece of floor. Really? She said the same thing, like when they went inside places, they had to wear them. The only time they had to wear them outside, they went to Universal, the amusement park. That was it. Everything else outside. Yeah.
So do you want me to sanitize it or?
You know, I don't. That thing was more glasses. Hogs my glasses up.
I trust you.
But really
Okay.
not. It's different. Yeah, it's different from what we're used to.
Hi, Stephanie.
Hi, good to see everyone.
Good to see you.
Sometimes.
I don't know if you saw the agenda, but once we get started, you'll be first up. So
Okay, perfect.
it's a long agenda. We wouldn't make you sit through all of it.
I've heard a lot of school board meetings and a lot of COVID talk.
A lot of COVID talk. Yeah.
Everybody's figuring it out. It's good.
I don't have Google on here.
We're streaming live. Yeah.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. It's 6:02. I'll call the Wabash City School Board meeting to order. Roll call.
Everyone's present.
Okay, would you please stand, join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge
allegiance
to the flag
of
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Begin each Wabash City School Board meeting with the Wabash City Schools mission. Wabash City Schools provides a relevant and rigorous education founded upon relationships to ensure each student is college and career ready for success in a global community. I'd like to welcome everybody that's joining us via the internet.
Yeah.
So recognitions.
We have Stephanie Veit from Hagerman this evening that will be doing a presentation. We've got a drone footage that we will show.
Okay.
Aside from that, we also have our building principals, and they will be doing their individual building presentations on how we plan to reopen schools on August 11th.
Okay. All right, thank you. No revisions to the agenda. We have the consent agenda. We have minutes of the June 29th, 2020 meeting, claims, there's some donations, and financials. Do we have a motion on the consent agenda?
Move we approve the consent agenda.
I have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion?
Mr. Stone, do you want to, anything on the financial?
I think the one good thing you'll see in the financials is we got some, our tax money, so the accounts came out of the negative, and so they're back in the positive. We didn't get it all that we would normally get, but we got a pretty good chunk, more than I thought we would get. So I would expect the rest of that to be made up when we get our December draw. They won't give us another draw in between because this was probably 85, 90%. So
We won't get another.
we'll get the rest in December. So all the people who paid their taxes after that, that date, we'll get that money in December when we get our December draw.
So the money that we transferred from the rainy day.
Probably needs to stay there for right now. That account still is not in great shape. We could take some of it back if you wanted to, but I don't think it's accounting, right? I think it's probably wise to wait to the end of the year to see what happens if we get our full tax draw in December, because they have to give us our debt. So what we didn't get was operations money, because that's only two things we're getting from our tax draw, and they have to give us our full debt payment. So when they had to cut some, what they cut was operations. So if it's okay with you guys, I would rather wait until we get our December draw and see where we're at before we transfer the money back to rainy day. And maybe we won't be able to transfer the whole thing. I mean, maybe we will. It depends on if we get our full tax money.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I would just like to add on the donations. Obviously, a lot of people came forward, speaks volumes of Ms. Sodervik, and certainly want to pass along our condolences to the Sodervik family on her recent passing. Had asked for them to put together a little blurb that maybe we could read to memorialize June. I don't have that, but if I can get that before the next board meeting, I'll be able to do that. So certainly, like I said, you see all those donations, speaks volumes of somebody that people want to memorialize them. So very classy individual and teacher for Wabash City Schools.
Any other discussion around the consent agenda? If not, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item I, the next regular scheduled board meeting will be Monday, August 3rd, 2020 at Wabash City Hall, 202 South Wabash Street, Wabash, Indiana at 6 p.m. We have a few items of communication. There's no old business, new business. We have quite an agenda tonight, so we will begin. Item A, project update by Hagerman.
All right, Stephanie, all you want me to just hit play?
I'm ready. You can go ahead and hit play.
Okay.
Hopefully everyone can see that. LH Carpenter is coming along. The steel erection and installation of the steel roof deck is all complete. Installation of the exterior sheathing is done. Wall rough-ins for mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and fire protection lines are all done and tied into the existing building. They're going to start to form and prep sidewalk along for asphalt for the sidewalk, and delivery of brick will be on site within the next week. Moving on to Alumni Field, as you can see, the whole thing is the away bleachers have been demoed. The track field, all of that has been demoed. We did have to remediate some unsuitable soils at the track. So that was all done and those soils were hauled off. The utility, drainage, and electrical underground rough-ins have all been done under the field. So that earthwork is happening. Turf is set to be installed on the 3rd of August. So the curb will be poured this week along with the concrete for the bleachers. The connector excavation and installation of site utilities is done. The next 2 weeks, actually almost 3 weeks, we'll be pouring foundation walls. So there's a lot of foundations to pour there. So that will be going on for the next few weeks. And then they'll start demoing existing walls within the school for the connector entryway. Moving around the corner to the gym, again, a lot of work since our last update that you've probably got to see on video. The installation of the first floor structural masonry walls and lintels are all done. Mechanical, electrical, and plumbing rough-ins for the locker rooms and restrooms are all complete. They are going to start installation of the second floor structural masonry walls, and that is moving right along. So that's about it. There's a lot on all 4 of those projects, so I'd be happy to take any questions.
You mentioned there was some unsuitable soil at the football track.
Mm-hmm.
You, explain that a little bit further.
Unsuitable soils for actually building. So the amount of weight, et cetera, that has to be put on the track and the field, it wasn't really compactable enough. So we had to take out more of the soil than we expected. But it's nothing that's not uncommon.
I know when we visited Norwell and on their project, they had the same thing.
Yeah.
And so, as Stephanie said, I don't think it's uncommon. And we've had irrigation systems under there for a long time. And I'm sure that helped contributed to some of that as well. So,
Yeah.
Is the field still on track?
Time, yep. So it's my understanding there'll be a lot of concrete poured this week for the curb and for the pad for the bleachers. The stadium lights are all on site and ready to be installed, and those will all still be installed, I believe, before the end of July. The turf will be installed the week of August 3rd, as well as the asphalt for the track. So it will be ready for the first home game. After the first home game is played, the rubber on the track will then be installed. So the asphalt will be down, but the actual track won't be ready like for a track meet until after the first football game. But it should be all ready to go for the first home game. At least that's our goal.
That's
Track so far.
September 4th.
September 4th.
Yep.
What's going in outside the track? Will that be sod or what?
I don't know. I don't know that. Do you know that, Jason? If they're doing, I'm not.
Where do you mean?
But I'm just curious, like where the visitors, I know it's going on a concrete pad, but outside of the track, you know, there used to be grass. Are we planting more grass
Yeah.
or?
It'll be
Yeah.
grass.
Yeah. Yeah. My guess is it won't be sod. They'll just probably seed it this fall. So that then next spring it'll grow grass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the corner of the football field next to the road that comes off of Harrison Avenue, it looks like there's maybe a little retention area there. Is that correct? Is there, I assume that will be fenced off
Yes.
so that kids who usually
Yeah.
play in that area aren't going to be
We thought we'd put a
jumping in.
diving board
Yeah.
competition for the
Well,
city pool, I
Okay.
thought.
Mhm.
I want to make sure
No,
that's what
it's
that
gonna
was,
be
was
fenced,
a retention area.
That is what it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had, obviously, Jason, you probably attended more often than I did the progress meetings with the drainage and the sewer stuff on that site that had to be a little bit reworked, that I believe is all complete now, and they have all that done.
And there had been some questions, I think, in the public about the trees. We had some nice trees on that corner and then also on that west side. And as you can see, we've had to, and that irrigation was the reason for that north, those large trees. But so we won't have unsuitable soil in the future.
Yeah, yep.
Everything's on track for LH Carpenter for the start of school, at least what we're going to use, the portion of it that we're going to use this year, the office area.
Yeah, as far as I know, Jason, you were at the last meeting on Thursday, the progress meeting. Because of COVID, we've had some delay times in getting some casework, but I think we've worked through all that.
Yeah.
May just have to use another supplier because the existing one, their lead times are just kind of double what they were going to be.
Yeah.
So I think we have that figured out, and that seems to be all back on track. So nothing that's glaring at us right now, at least from a timing standpoint. It'll be obviously a push to the last minute, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, I know that leaving that last construction meeting, Miss Wilson was smiling, so it must be suitable. But yeah, I think as Stephanie said, there's casework that it was delayed in the ordering. Casework would be like basically Paula's desk, things that maybe we would have to bring in a desk for her, or maybe
Yeah.
Kathy before.
The office reception area there. Yeah.
But we can still open up. It's nothing that.
Yeah. And I think that the supplier that they called, a different supplier said, yes, they could get those to us. So fingers crossed, we may have a door or two that might be a little bit late, that we have to put up a door that's not going to be a permanent door. But other than that, nothing that's will keep you from using the building as intended.
Yeah. And I just remind the board as well, the scope of that project is that it's not going to be completed until the fall of 21. Right. The idea was that we would not touch the current building. We would just build the addition, and then we would go back. Well, we had time because of COVID to go ahead and do renovations within the current building. And so that's what's going on there. So they'll be able to step back out of that. there's still work to be done in that current section. It just won't get done until next summer.
Question regarding the gymnasium. Is that usable this fall for volleyball, or would that be to the high school?
Steffi, I don't know. I feel it. He asked if the gym would be available for volleyball. And I don't know if you have additional information, but at the construction meeting, Mr. McQuirk, Mr. Stone, and I were informed that I believe September 20th is when they're going to take down that wall and then put in that upper deck bleacher. That won't be able to be used at that point, but we'll be able to use the gym for volleyball at that point. So,
And they're not gonna use the high school. They're gonna play at OJ.
Okay.
OJ's air conditioned. It's not in a construction zone.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Parking.
So I think Floyd said 3 or 4 games
Yeah.
would have to be played there before we can get back into cool finish the year.
but then we will be able to get back in there to finish for volleyball.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Stephanie. If there's,
Thanks, guys, for having me.
Yeah.
We had gone on a tour
Yes.
a week or so ago and had discussed the possibility of setting up a tour for the entire board.
Yep.
Maybe in August. Is that something still being looked at?
Yeah. And we could go either after, Adam said he can make anything work.
Yeah.
He tries to commit Thursdays to all day at Wabash. So we could either do it after the construction meeting coming up in August, or try to find another time where we could get everybody together.
Can we do it before school starts?
We could do one if the board is used to coming together on Tuesday nights. We could do something before a board meeting as well.
Okay.
In August or September, whenever we can have, whenever there's enough light that you can actually see what's
Right.
happening. A lot going on each project, but
Okay, all right, thank you.
awesome. Thank you.
Thanks.
I'll go
Steph.
ahead and mute, but I'm gonna stay on for a little.
All right. You want to
Thanks,
listen to
guys.
COVID
Thank
plan?
you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, item B, approve the attached reopening plan for the 2020-2021 school year.
And this is really a comprehensive plan. I wanted to take a brief minute to, I guess, first to thank all the people that were a part of this, from our staff, our parents, Dr. Rowe from the County Health Department. We've also reached out to Alan Miracle through InGuard. And really the idea is that we would ensure that these plans are vetted threefold. They would be vetted by, obviously, the County Health Department, by our casualty and liability insurance provider, and then ultimately tonight we're going to vote as a board. What I would say to the board too, these are really comprehensive. I think somebody mentioned before the board meeting started, my guess is they will be adapted or changed maybe weekly, very fluid. And I know there's a lot of parents watching, and as we submit these out, I'll make sure that the communication is, these are very fluid plans. We will work diligently to update them and communicate those updates. I think these are pretty broad in that I can't imagine future updates to be monumental updates. I'm guessing there'll be tweaks, small updates to this plan. But again, I want to thank our staff. We've had a lot of committees and subcommittees, conversations. The model that you will see in here at the beginning on the comprehensive overall is actually, I believe, out of Georgia model. So we've looked nationally as well. We've been in conversations with the Indiana Association of Public School Superintendents, also working with Upper Wabash Valley. And then I also want to thank my colleagues at MSD of Wabash County and also Manchester Community Schools because we have worked well with Dr. Rowe as well on finding very, very similar plans so that families throughout the county would not see large differences in these plans. So I'm going to begin by saying, when you look at this initial page and the initial kind of overall plan, we looked at it through the lenses of, right now we have a moderate to low spread going on locally and statewide. Whereas when we shut down schools, we were facing substantial spread. And that was mandated by the governor. And so we were forced to go 100% online. We hope to be able to open up August 11th. Our plan is to open up August 11th by providing two options for our families. One option would be traditional in-person school, as much as what we think of school. And then another option was an online school. And I would say this is going to be a different school than what our families experienced in the spring. We have, because we did a survey with our families, we realized that up to 14% of families in our district felt like they would choose an online option. We felt like we should make that available to them. With that being said, we still had about 86% of our families say they want to come back to traditional school, or they're very flexible and they're willing to do whatever Wabash City Schools deems necessary. And so with those numbers, we felt like we would offer those two options. And that's what we plan on doing as we go into the 2020-2021 school year. You'll see, and by the way, all these plans will be available. In fact, I believe they're currently available on our website. There is a COVID link on that website. And so you should be able to go there and access these plans at this point. We also have our reporting system is a email address. It's just simply covid@apaches.k12.in.us. That will be where we ask for parents when they have questions, or if there are positive cases with their children or in their home or relatives where there's been exposure, we would ask them to contact us immediately via that website. We also feel like once we get going, we will put up some individual data points on that website that can be accessed off the Wabash City Schools site. So you'll see here, these are some scenarios, and we've had a lot of questions about what happens if a teacher tests positive, what happens if a student tests positive. These guidelines here will really drive what our response is, or what we're asking for our response. We are to notify the Wabash County Health Department immediately upon notification of a positive response. And then tracing will begin at that point in time. It's very important to understand, one of, I think, the misnomers is, so if a teacher at OJ Neighbors or a teacher at Wabash High School, middle school, LH Carpenter tests positive, that if they had, let's say at the high school, they had 100 different students in that classroom over the course of the day, the misnomer is that all those students were exposed. This is where masks and social distancing come into play. We understand that the only ones who must follow these guidelines are the students and staff that have direct exposure. And direct exposure is how it's been defined by Dr. Box on a state level, has been within 6 feet without a mask for longer than 15 minutes. That is direct exposure. If there is direct exposure, then we will, again, notify the families and work with the tracing to find out if there was direct exposure. Our guidance to our staff is to wear masks anytime our staff all our staff, so teachers, paraprofessionals, obviously our food service, our bus drivers, our administration, they are to wear a mask unless social distancing can be achieved. And so if they adhere to that, then you won't have direct exposure. So again, those 100 students may have come through that teacher's classroom, but if they were not without a mask or direct exposure, then they don't have to follow the guidelines of the direct exposure of being in contact with someone with a positive case. Now, that's not to say that the parents, we wouldn't recommend going to one of the free clinics and getting tested. It is totally up to them. But direct exposure will require that testing and these guidelines at that point in time. And so again, we're directing our staff to be masked when social distancing cannot be achieved. And we are working on some other guidelines like teacher boxes where we'll set up tape so that teachers, if they feel like they can stay beyond 6 feet from their students, then they don't necessarily have to wear a mask because they can achieve that social distancing. And so that's something I think very important for all of our families, our community, for the board, and our staff and students to understand as you look at this guidance. The same would be said for students. And there's ongoing conversations about, again, we want traditional school to be as normal as possible. But we also understand that the more we open it up, the less we enforce masks, the less we enforce social distancing, the more difficult it's going to be to do the tracing. So if a student is not wearing a mask and they're involved in going from class to class, it's going to be much more difficult to be able to say, I know the 3, 4, 5 people they were in contact with today or direct exposure with today. And so with that being said, and I think as you look or listen to the buildings, we're trying to limit movement as much as possible, and we're trying to limit exposure to the highest number of students when possible, while still trying to create a traditional school. And again, I think this is where the tweaking of the plans will continue to develop as we move forward. So I am not going to go through every piece of this, but as you look through the plan and you will start seeing on the decision making, the green is our plans A, where for parents, as they start the 2020-2021 school year, they're going to either choose that traditional or they're going to choose the online. So the pink, the e-learning, that is if we have to shut down completely or if there's a state mandate that shuts us down completely, we will go back to that in the pink. And that's plan B. Obviously, we want plan A.
Will that be as it was in the spring with it 3 days, or will it be more an everyday thing?
At this point, I would say 3 days.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Quick question
Yes.
on just above that decision-making model. You got, if someone in your home has tested positive for COVID-19, then those folks within that household should stay home for a minimum of 2 weeks. So if we
Yes.
have students
Yes.
who have a family member that has tested positive, yet they have not and do not show symptoms, we're recommending that those students stay home for 2 weeks. Will there be an allowance that they could possibly transition into the online school for that 2-week period or until they're
Yes.
able to come back to school? Is
Yeah.
that?
We're hoping as we evolve the online school or we evolve, eventually we would hope that it would be synchronous and that students would be able to go back and forth. Obviously, we're asking a lot out of staff, teachers that have chosen, and we'll get to that later in the board meeting, the approval of those teachers who are going to run online. It may be different than those those staff members, but we hope to try to be able to offer some type of distance ed or online for those students access to that as we move forward. And again, this will be somewhat in flux, but if, let's say your child, if Eli Callahan has to stay home for 2 weeks, but he's able to progress with the curriculum via online or distance ed, then the school can look at that and see that as not an absence, but again, that they're progressing and that won't be counted as an absence. Now, if they're sick and they just can't do their work, it's an absence, but again, it'll be an excused absence at any point if it's due to quarantine or illness associated with COVID. So I know that's been a question about how are we going to handle absences, and certainly you could see absences amounting to much greater than 5-10 days, or things that we typically could start seeing as truancy. If they're in those COVID guidelines, then obviously those students, it will not be held against and their absences will be excused. Or if they're able to progress academically, they may not even be viewed as absences.
The state is providing masks for all students. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yes. And so earlier this summer, the state of Indiana, Governor Holcomb said that they would provide masks for every student in the state of Indiana. So we had to fill out a form to say how many students we had. And they even went grade level, because obviously you're going to need a different size of mask for a kindergartner than you do an 18-year-old. And so we have those masks coming to us. We have to adopt a policy that is on the board agenda tonight that basically states that we encourage the use of these masks whenever social distancing cannot be achieved. And so that's the only real guideline.
Which type of masks are they? Are they cloth? Or are
They're
the-
cloth.
Okay.
I haven't seen them yet. They're not in yet, but they're cloth.
You know what? I read that because then somebody in the staff is going to wash them nightly. I read that didn't I read that?
No.
Carpenter.
Yeah.
Oh, at Carpenter.
Yeah.
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 Okay, so then
Yeah,
the
that's
other
not
schools,
throughout.
they'll bring them home and we'll wash them
Yes.
nightly.
Yeah.
You're on the.
That's what I read.
You're doing high school, right?
Yeah. You didn't get the message that each board member has
Right.
a fifth of the washing. And I think these guidelines will, and we're going to have extra masks so that when students forget, or in a case where there's a lab, in a case where, again, transportation, I really appreciated the clarification from the state and even the CDC that, the original guidelines, we thought only 10 kids could ride a bus, and that was going to be virtually impossible. We can fill up the bus, but they do need to wear masks. Some questions about transportation, and again, we can get into that later. Obviously, there's going to be some students with health issues. We can look at visors, some different options with that. I've also talked to Mrs. McBride, our transportation director, about if there's a possibility that there really is some kind of health issue that prevents masks and visors, which I haven't heard of any yet. Then maybe they could sit individually, but the requirement is going to be, especially on transportation, when social distancing cannot be achieved, masks will be required. So, so again, this is kind of the decision-making model, and it spells out basically these three options. We hope we never get to Plan B, but we have that there. Another thing I'd like to mention is that during our online registration, which is open right now, families can opt either traditional or online. There's going to be flexibility. So if a family would choose online, and then second week of August or the second week of school, they recognize that this is not the best choice for their child, we can switch at some point it's going to become difficult, and we'll probably say after 2 weeks or 3 weeks, can't switch until the 9 weeks, just for that continuity. Again, we're asking teachers to do kind of both and if we have kids coming in and out every day, it's going to be very difficult. So basically what we've said is every 9 weeks, we will reevaluate or allow families to reevaluate the online or in-person situation. So any student that receives special education services and that has an individual education plan, obviously they will need to meet and have that conversation if they choose the online school, because obviously we cannot provide everything that may be in that plan in an online setting. And so we want to make sure that we're not signing up for something that we can't deliver. So we'll be asking those families to meet again to be able to go over that plan in an online format. So we looked at this from a teaching and learning standpoint. What does this look like? Again, requiring our staff to wear the masks, our students, again, when social distancing cannot be maintained. We're talking about potentially in the hallways, potentially at the secondary level during lunch. You think about lab situations where students are working together in a chemistry or biology lab, writer's workshop, kids are working, and English teachers walking around. Obviously, these are times where the mask would be required. We understand that if it's a direct lecture and students are all sitting in rows and facing forward, that could be a time where masks are not required. But again, the more often we can achieve that, the less likely we're going to have to shut down when there's a positive case. I will also stipulate if there's a positive case at the middle school, say, and we have to shut down for 2 days to clean and do tracing, that does not mean we have to shut down at the high school, and it does not mean we have to shut down at LH and OJ as well. So we will go back and look at the tracing, and if there's no impact on those buildings, we will not shut those buildings down. We would only shut down the building affected. So I think that's important to recognize as well. Our main vehicle of communication will be School Messenger and also that website. Those will be the two main, although we will continue to run social media sites as well and push that out on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram where we have that. But those are the two main communication pieces. Protective measures. One of the things that we did, and again, we're doing, as you saw at the beginning from Stephanie's presentation, we're doing a lot of construction across the district. Any new water fountains, we went ahead and put in bottle fillers that are infrared. There's not a touch. You just put the bottle under there and it'll fill up. Right now, Mr. Maxwell and our building custodians are working to replace every single water fountain in the district. And so water fountains are a thing of the past. We will use water bottles or disposable cups if we can and do that for those.
So they won't, how do I want to word this? So they won't be able to be able to be used as a drinking fountain in future years, just
Correct.
bottles?
Yes. I don't think you'll see water fountains anywhere.
So
Yeah,
there'll be,
I think they're obsolete.
there will just always be little paper cups there for them to pull and use.
Or their water bottle.
Okay.
I heard talk, are we gonna do water bottle, like provide a water bottle? I heard
Yes.
discussion of that.
Yes, Parkview is providing for all our student athletes. Last I checked, yeah. And again, it's fluid. And then our hope is to and maybe we'll seek out a sponsorship, but we should be able to supply water bottles for every kid. So protecting vulnerable populations, again, we serve over 1,500 kids in Wabash City Schools. And our vision statement is building a legacy of opportunity for all students. As you guys have heard me speak multiple times, hopefully our public has heard this, all students means all students. And we have a variety of students that have a variety of needs. And so when there's that parent out there and you have a kid that has a unique need, we just want to be able to contact the school as soon as possible so we can start building a plan around for that child, whether it's a child has asthma or some other kind of health issue, or there's a 504 plan, et cetera, et cetera. So we will take every case individually. Cleaning and sanitizing, Mr. Stone, do you want to mention some of the measures that we've taken with Cintas? And
Yeah, we hired Cintas to provide us with some sanitizing chemicals and some things to help us, but they're also doing some themselves. So they're coming in once a week to do the cafeteria, make sure that our food prep areas are clean. They're doing our restrooms in our buildings once a month. They're doing our locker, our weight room and our wrestling room, which just started being used. So they've come in to clean those. They'll do those once every 2 weeks. They've provided sanitizing agents for our custodians that'll be kept in the closet. So at night, they'll go around with these backpacks and be able to spray down rooms and make sure that our food prep areas are clean. Restrooms in our building once a month. We're doing our locker cafeteria for our food prep ladies. So we have aprons and used rags that they'll wash for us and make sure they're sanitized properly. And they can throw those in a tub at night to get clean. So they have new clean ones every day. And we've talked about having them provide masks for our staff, which they can sanitize and provide us and get clean. So they've been a big help to us and to our custodians and to Bruce as we make all these plans on how we're going to go about keeping classrooms a little cleaner and restrooms cleaner and hallways cleaner. And so I think we feel good about that. I think the guys are still, how's this going to work when the kids are there? But I do think the spray packs will help them at night be able to get through classrooms. They probably are going to be a little busier than they have been, right? Because that's talking about doing a lot of rooms every night. But it's the kind of sanitizer that they can spray, and as long as it sits for 10 minutes, it kills stuff, and they don't have to come through and wipe it off or anything. So that'll help also. It'll help them get through that. But work in progress, right? We'll see where we got to go. And then the hand sanitizers are being, we've already had new paper towel and soap dispensers that are non-touch installed. And this week they're putting in the hand sanitizing things in all the rooms so that you just put your hand underneath it and it'll squirt a shot of hand sanitizer in your hand. So we'll have that in all the classrooms and restrooms.
masks. Do you want to talk about masks?
About the ones for the staff? Or?
Yes.
So Cintas is also able to provide cloth masks where we can just get stacks of 50 for our staff, and they actually suggest you use 2 a day so that you don't have to use the same mask all day long. And it's the same principle as the aprons in the cafeteria. We'll have bins probably in the main office or somewhere, and at the end of the day, the teachers can throw those in there, get new ones for the next day. Cintas will come in and sanitize them. And we asked the question, well, why can you wash them better than we can? Well, because they can get machines that wash hotter, dry hotter, and can get those things to the point where the CDC recommends. I don't think we can probably do that. And so they can sanitize those things to CDC recommendations and have us a supply constantly so that any staff member who wants a mask, doesn't want to get their own, will have a supply of masks in the office, and they'll get them, and they get new ones every day, not have to wash them. So yeah, I think that's a big help. Yeah.
Okay. Extracurricular, let me move this. Our extracurricular and co-curricular, obviously our athletics are up and going. We talked a little bit beforehand. Locker rooms are not being used at this point. And so that may change in the future. Our policy is going to be, because it is our online school, as long as students who choose the online school, they will be able to participate in IHSA athletics. If they chose a different online school, then it wouldn't be ours, and they would not be able to participate in our athletics. But they will be able to if they do choose that. So that's a little bit of difference, and I think that's a question. Heartland Career Center is another question that I've had several people in the community address. And after talking to Mr. Whelan, and I may have him add to this, certainly is going to be a case-by-case basis with students. We certainly want to set our students up for success. As a general rule, we would allow this. Obviously, Heartland students are probably doing some type of hands-on career training. And so they're going to have to be there in person. But if a family were to choose to minimize or to mitigate the risk, and they wanted to do Heartland half the day, we at this point would see that they could do the online as long as the classes were available, and do that online. And so one of the things that Mr. Whelan and I talked about, and I'm sure he talked with staff, is we had a number of family or a number of students who just chose not to do the work or struggled in that online environment. If it's a child who is going to struggle in an online environment, then we'd be less apt to allow that. But if they're willing to put in the work and get their work done and be successful in an online environment, we would be willing to offer that to them. And so I see Kyle's not frowning too much, so I must not be too wrong on that. Again, we talked a little bit about summer athletics are up and running. Again, the same kind of key principles are in place. Social distancing, when social distancing cannot be achieved, we're asking staff to wear masks, encouraging our kids to wear masks as much as possible. Obviously, there's some you're playing in a football game, it's probably not possible. And so the key will be making sure that families are screening and making sure that if they have any symptoms, that they are not participating in athletic or extracurricular activities. We're having ongoing conversations about what will sporting events look like. I know I had a really good conversation with Mr. McQuirr. If everybody remembers, last year we did free student passes, where we had a lot of businesses that went out there and were very generous in supporting us and allowing us to do that. This year, because of the flux, we're probably not providing the free passes, because we're just not sure if we're going to be able to offer 100% capacity in the stands. And so check back, that's not necessarily something that we've made a concrete ruling on yet, but it may be something where we limit. We certainly are going to encourage our fans to social distance, and when they cannot, wear masks as much as possible. It's just going to be, as Dr. Rowe said to me earlier, a very daunting challenge to enforce such things. And so we're just trying to keep everybody safe. And so we will continue to encourage that. We definitely want as many family and friends and community members to come out and support the Apaches on the field, or on the court. Mr. Stone, anything else about extracurriculars, co-curriculars?
Going good so far.
I think we have some good plans for band, and I know Mr. Neville and Miss Winery are working on plans for band and choir to keep kids safe as well, and so we can continue to offer those. Those are areas that certainly pose some challenges due to the nature of the class. Transporting students. I feel a lot better about this than I did when the first guidelines came out. Masks are going to be required of everybody, especially when social distancing cannot be achieved. One of the first things we say, our parents are encouraged to transport children to and from school. We will assign seats, hopefully keep families together. But when you think of that tracing, when you think there is a positive case, that assigned seats will be so important because we can confirm that Johnny or Susie sat in that same seat every time, and the people around them will know exactly who they are. And so I just want to continue to urge everybody to understand that as much as we can control movement and exposure of students and staff, the better off and less interruptions we will have. So I think these are pretty, and when I get to the other reentry plan, these are condensed as well. Mrs. McBride is with us. Shannon, do you have anything that you want to add to what I said?
No, just for clarification purposes, though, the bus drivers will have the masks on the whole time. I know there was a question about them taking them on and off or just having them on when the students board. They will drive with either a face mask or a face shield the whole time. So anytime there's a student on the bus, they will have something on.
Thank you.
I got clarification today that we can have hand sanitizer, but it has to be the size of your palm. That's it.
So we'll have it available on the bus.
Yep, we ordered it today, so I'm gonna give one to each bus driver to have. Students can bring it on, that's fine. We just cannot keep it bulk on the bus.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Sure.
Serving meals. And again, I have each building principal administrator is going to present a little bit. So things are a little different, building by building. I want to thank Mrs. Honeycutt again. I can't say enough about the work she's done to continue to feed our community. One of the things that makes me the most proud of what we've been able to do was the week after we shut down, she was serving meals to the community, just like that. And so I want to thank her, and I know there's tons of people behind her that make that happen. I've said it before in these meetings. It wasn't only our cafeteria workers, it was bus drivers, it was our SRO, Sam Hipskin, it was, I believe, other officers were out there, it was some of our teachers. I know Mrs. Sapusik and her kids were out there. I saw a lot of people out there that were helping serve meals, and so kudos to them, and we will continue to do that if Plan B goes into effect. We'll be back at that. So, Ms. Honeycutt, I'm not sure if you're with us or if
She was, but you have to unmute her.
do I have to unmute her?
She said she didn't think her.
All right, maybe. Oh, it should be. I never muted her.
She said she could hear you, but her speaker said unavailable.
Okay, ask her if she's got anything else for us to share. Call her too, put her on speaker.
Yeah.
I'm good, till thanks.
Okay, well, hang tight in case the board has any questions. So we know you're good. So that's really it in the overall. I'll show you. Megan Defoe at my office worked on condensing that. There's a lot of language, a lot of words in that, and I believe. Let's see. I may not have it here. Maybe I do. All right. It certainly looks better. than the other document. And this will be accessed to on the Wabash City Schools website. I really like what she did here because it just simplified, and I think gave you a good idea. Screening, attendance, reporting. Again, we ask for constant screening of kids. We've kind of already gone over those guidelines about returning. And then I can't urge this enough. If there are positive cases, we need to know those as soon as possible, regardless of the time of the day. And they can contact us there at covid@apaches.k12.in.us. So traditional school, this is just kind of our guidelines, again, in a very condensed way. Online school, extracurriculars, transportation, and then food service. So it's more or less the same. There's not new information there. It's just the information I just went over in a condensed and aesthetically, much more aesthetically pleasing way. So with that being said, I am going to move right on to our buildings.
Jason, I don't think we ever made a motion to approve.
Oh,
and
okay.
Discuss. So
Yeah,
I think we
I'm
need
sorry.
to
Yeah.
go back and
Good call.
get a motion to approve the reopening plan.
Well, we reopened, approved the reopening plan.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Good call. Be a lot of words for no action. Okay. Hey, Kathy, you want to make this easy and go up first?
Sure.
I'm not voting.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
she's gonna present. We're gonna vote after all the.
Okay.
You gonna move it up a little bit?
Yes. You'll have to direct me.
To give you a little preview of how our arrival procedures will go, we have before care, we have car riders, and we have bus students. If your children come before school, we are still providing before care. It's going to operate pretty much the same. Staff member will come greet them at the door. We are going to take temperatures, at least for a while. And then we will wash hands or use hand sanitizer as the child enters. We will wear face masks. And because we're 4-year-olds and we're preschool, ours will use face masks when they are playing with another child, because socialization is the biggest part of preschool. So ours will be asked to wear masks when they're playing with another child. And we will disinfect all toys that they play with at the end of each day. Car riders, we will greet them. A staff member will greet them at the curb. Again, we'll check temperatures, and then a staff member will escort the student into the building, and we'll do the hand washing, hand sanitizer, and get them to class. Bus students will greet them as they come into the building, check temperatures, and again, hand sanitize and wash their hands and get them to class. You can move it up to classroom procedures. We're not going to share high touch materials such as the crayons, pencils, glue, scissors, and those types of things. Each child brings those from home, so they'll have their own designated box and use those. So when they're going to a small group, they're going to use theirs as opposed to community. If they're going to an art center, they're going to have to take their materials to the art center. Again, we'll be asked to wear masks unless we can't social distance. We have 10 centers that we have to, by past equality, get those centers in. So they're going to have to be in a center. If they can't be by themselves, then they'll be with a friend. They'll wear a mask. If they're by themselves, they don't have to wear the mask. If they're at their desk by themselves, they don't have to wear a mask. But if they can't social distance, then they will be wearing a mask. As I said, we have 10 centers. So anything that they touch during that day, we will disinfect that night. And then we will constantly be washing hands as we typically do anyway.
lunch procedures. Move it up.
Sorry.
That's okay. Obviously, we will wash hands before we go to lunch as we normally do. We will be going into our cafeteria. The kids' plates will be plated for them and served. Our staff members will put on the condiments and do all of that for them, which we've done in the past as well. We will enter one in one door and we will exit out another door so that we eliminate the congestion. And I've put it to where we have 15 minutes between the classes so that we can disinfect the tables and everything prior to the next class coming. You can move it up to recess procedures. We will be going out for recess and we will stagger on the playground times so that classes can still be on the playground equipment. We found that we have a sanitizer that we can spray on, and it takes 10 minutes before the next class can go out. So we will just make sure that we will assign certain times for the playground to be used and then enough time in between classes that we can put the sanitizer on. Due to past equality, we can only have one class at a time out on the playground anyway. So that didn't change our recess schedule really. We're just having to add time in between for disinfection. Dismissal procedure. Kind of basically the same thing. We'll make sure that they're hand sanitized or hands are washed before they load the bus. They'll have their face mask on as well if they're loading the bus. And then the bus drivers will have their assigned seats. Aftercare, they will go down to the aftercare again, hand sanitize. We will still go through our snacks. When they do a rest time, cots will be done so that they are head to toe, so that they're not head to head, and that they will be stretched out. Each one will have an assigned cot, and then they will be disinfected as well. Car riders, when they arrive the first day, we're going to give them their name and teacher's name, and the parent will put that in their dashboard. And then we will radio in when it's time for that child to come out, and a staff member will bring them out and we'll put them in the car. Aftercare pickup is the same thing. The parent still comes to the door, rings the bell. We greet them at the door, and then we will escort the child out to them, and then they will sign out on the clipboard. And actually, we are going with a new system, so it's actually going to be a touchless. They'll just have a QR code that they'll put their phone up to. Quick enough?
Pretty good. Pretty impressed. Questions for Miss Wilson? I figured probably digest a little
Rhonda,
bit.
you did hear. We have 2 masks. Mission Stitches is making masks for each one of our kids. We color coded them according to the classrooms. So there'll be a series of blue for one class, green, whatever. And we will be putting their names on them. And then we will wash them nightly. We are asking that parents provide them one to come into the school and out of the school. But we will have the one, actually 2, because the state's providing the other one. So we will have 2 that they'll switch off and on here at school. And we will do that. And we're doing that basically so we make sure we can guarantee that they have them. So.
That's great. Kathy, I do have a question for you. A parent asked me, a friend of mine, she was wanting to register her daughter for preschool, but there wasn't, is that open? Are we doing that now? Or where does she do that? At the ad office or?
You
does she
can,
call you?
she didn't come to pre-registration in the spring. She can call the school. I'm here every day from 8 to 3, 274-0333. And we can get her registered.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
You're welcome.
All right, Emily, you're up.
Okay, good evening. Going through the plan for OJ Neighbors, we have proposed that all students be in attendance from 8:15 a.m. to 3:10. We propose that the school will remain locked until the 8:15 a.m. bell. This is a change from previous years, as we used to allow those doors to unlock at 8 a.m. for breakfast. So we are going to keep everything locked and everybody arrives at 8:15. Dismissal will begin at 2:50 p.m. in the classrooms, and the buses will exit by 3:10. The car rider line will begin at 3:10, and we have a goal to be finished by 3:20. For arrival, one bus at a time will drop students off at the front entrance. And then the car rider line, again, we will do one car at a time. Prior to this year, we would allow several cars down the entire sidewalk to let off, and then all of those kids to walk in at once. So it's going to slow things down for our car riders in the morning, but I think we'll get into a good groove as we move through. Students will wear a mask traveling through the hallways, and students will walk straight to their classroom. There will be no gathering in the cafeteria. For dismissal, students will remain in the classrooms until their bus is called over the intercom. That way we can load one bus at a time, as opposed to having the entire building let out at the same time when the bell rings. So that's just to limit interaction with kids. Again, students will wear the mask when traveling through the hallway at all possible. And then car riders, this is new, and we're really, really excited about this. Mr. Hipskind and Mr. Maxwell and I have worked really, really hard to get a system into OJ where we're going to bring all of the students into the gymnasium. We will, of course, do social distancing, and each family will have a numbered tag system. And as there will be a scanner that's out by the parking lot, and as cars drive underneath that scanner, it scans their tag. There will be the projector up in the gym. The numbers will show up in order as the cars drive through. That gives the staff in the gym time to be able to get those kids ready, and then we can dismiss one family at a time out the door. COVID or no COVID, this is a really good thing for OJ, just speaking in terms of safety. So it eliminates a massive amount of kids in the cafeteria at the end of the day, and then us just propping the doors open and having adults come in and take kids home. So we're really, really excited about this. Probably the biggest change for OJ is that breakfast and lunch will be served in the classrooms. The lunch personnel will cart the lunches to each of the classrooms. You can see on there which grade is slotted for which lunch period. We are also pairing paraprofessional support with each teacher. So the teachers will have their regular time for lunch. Support personnel will have their regular time for their lunch as well. So teachers will not have to stay in there while they're eating. The paraprofessional will come into each classroom and cover that lunch period for them. Recess will be directed by individual teachers. Prior to COVID, we would have an entire grade level go out on the playground at once. We just can't have 120 kids out there at once and attempt social distancing. So we will do a schedule for each classroom to go out for recess. We are monitoring how we are going to be able to use the playground equipment so we can schedule sanitizing it. We got a lot of classrooms, and I don't know about recess happening right at 8:15 for some kids. So we're going to have to get creative in how we can have enough time to be able to sanitize that equipment for each classroom. And then we are also brainstorming guided movement activities just to help assist with that. Classroom procedures, all desks will be arranged to face forward. Any classrooms that had kids sitting at tables, there won't be tables in the classrooms. Everybody will have a desk. The desk will be separate as much as possible. Anytime that kiddos are working with small group, whether it be a reading group or a math group, masks will be required to wear by the kids because we can't social distance appropriately with that. I also want to reiterate that the wearing of masks is not going to turn into disciplinary, right? So there are going to be kiddos that don't want to wear that mask at that given point in time. And we will have alternative options for that kiddo, so it doesn't turn into something where they would be sent to the principal's office because they didn't wear their mask. So we are working on those alternative options for kids as well. That's OJ.
Questions for OJ?
So let me see if I understood the last comment, Emily. So if the teacher recommends that the students wear masks for whatever the reason may be at that time as a class, and a student doesn't want to comply, you're looking at other options to address that?
Yeah, so like I'm thinking if a reading group is pulled back to the kidney-shaped table and kids are required to wear masks, 98% of those kids are going to put the mask on, and teachers are going to get creative, and they're going to be very, very good at incentivizing it or making it fun or appropriate, whatever it may be for the kids. There's going to be kids that just refuse, or like you said, don't comply. Then we find strategies or alternative tasks for that student to be able to do at their desk, so they can be appropriately social distanced, but they don't have to wear that mask in that moment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And then I had a question about pickup, because so many times multiple people pick up the kids at different times. Is there a limit to how many different tags you can get? And
No, that's a really, really good question. So with the tag system, the company, like what we purchase, there's one tag for every family that is given to each family. So if I want to have 2 other people be able to pick up my kiddo, then I'd pay $5 for each additional tag.
okay,
What you could also do though is if I have the one tag for my kiddos or my family, and I know that grandma's picking up or somebody else that I designate is picking up, I can give that person my tag and it still reads under the name of the family.
okay.
So it just depends, I guess, on how often that would be, if it would be benefit for you to purchase an additional tag or not.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions for OJ? Thanks, Emily. Mike?
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. First of all, I guess I think I would like to say thank you to all the people that helped design this plan. There were a lot of people, a lot of input that went into it, from busing to administrators to teachers to spending time with custodians and Matt. And I think what we've designed is great, with the idea of how do we mitigate as much as we can and meet our number one goal, which is to get kids back in our building and with us and moving forward in that direction. So thanks to all of those people. It was definitely a village that did this, and the communication between buildings to make it as smooth. So you're going to see a lot of repetition in a lot of areas, and I'll try to skip over that part. But essentially, our buses are going to come in a staggered fashion, our 5th and 6th graders, because they do get there at 7:50 because of wanting to be able to pick up elementary kids and make sure everybody is safe and there's plenty of time. They'll report to the cafeteria, where that will be set up in a social distanced process. Our 7th and 8th graders will go. They used to go to the top of the gym. That's not available right now, nor is that big enough. So we're going to social distance those that come on buses at that time. 5th and 6th graders can eat in the cafeteria if they choose, and 7th and 8th graders, we will have some tables in our lobby. We're going to make good use of that space in our lobby throughout the day. You'll hear me mention that a couple of times. We will have those as assigned seats, as Mr. Callahan alluded to, that we would be able to do all of that the tracing, contact tracing and whatnot. So our hallway procedures, this is actually something I wanted to do. I heard Mrs. Tracy say COVID or no COVID. This is a good thing. I believe this is here too. We will not have a passing period per se. 5th grade, that's not an issue. They stagger their things anyway, but at any given time in a high school or middle school, that bell rings and you have 350 people in the hallways. So we are going to have our kids carry their things with them. They can use their lockers for coats and PE equipment, but essentially they will be going from one class directly to the next. So that will cut down on that socialization part, which I hate to see for our students because that's crucial for middle school kids, but it will get them safely from class to class. So since our 8th graders, a few of them go to the high school, they will go first, and then our 7th graders will follow. Restrooms, you might ask. We will ask them to do as we as adults do, know when there is an appropriate time to ask the person in charge of the presentation to allow you to go. So if a teacher is teaching, that's probably not the best time to ask. If you're working on assignments, that's a good time to ask. So we're going to develop that as well. Classroom procedures are just like OJ Neighbors or Wabash High School or LH Carpenter. So I don't think I really need to spend a lot of time there. That's the same process, building to building. So I'm ready for the next one there, boss. Lunch procedures, the social distancing will be in place, and that means that our 8th graders will be served from the concession stand area, and they will be using that giant, awesome lobby that we have there. So they will also use that outside area just outside of the entrance to the school. Other than that, we've staggered the times just a little bit. Melanie did a great job working with Amy LePage and her group, finding ways for us to be able to social distance them in the cafeteria, allow them to eat in a normal, little bit more normal of a routine, but still keep that social distance and also know who is where so the contact tracing can occur. Our 5th graders are eating a little bit later, so we want to encourage or we will provide snacks for those that can't bring their own. We certainly encourage anybody to bring what they would like. But a 1 o'clock lunch for a 5th grader, that's a pretty long morning. That's a long morning for me too, I'm not gonna lie. So we will provide snacks for classrooms. Obviously kids will be allowed to bring their own as well. So I think recess, it's a lot easier for us probably than OJ Neighbors, and it's even easier for the high school than for us, I think, because I don't think they ever have recess. But there's a little misnomer here. The only one that has an assigned recess time is 5th grade. However, the area is used more often than that, maybe because middle school kids need to get out and stretch their legs. I don't know if you've been by our building lately, but our recess area is kind of small right now. I think we have a Gaga pit, so we're going to put 125 kids into that Gaga pit, and probably not a good idea, but did talk to Adam Hall just the other day, and he said that we could utilize Honeywell Park. We're also going to have a turf field, so I don't think Mr. McCourt can tell me that we're going to tear it up anymore. So we're using creative spaces there, and we will schedule those together in groups and probably have a couple of classrooms that will travel to those different areas and then rotate areas on a daily basis. So everybody gets a chance to play basketball or tennis or play on the football field. So end of the day dismissal, again, I don't know if you've been past our building lately. Our biggest challenge is we have one door right now. So we worked with Shannon, and Mr. Harold was a part of this as well. And again, I think going back to Mrs. Tracy's statement that COVID or no COVID, this is probably a better process. We're going to dismiss by buses. The buses should be on our campus about 3:30. We will know what order the buses are in, and we will start dismissing kids. So the buses will actually be waiting on the kids to come out of the building. So we'll dismiss them by bus number through the PA. We will also dismiss car riders alphabetically, and they will go out the separate entrances that we have right now. So yeah, that's a quick rundown. I hope that's okay, but there was a lot of repetition in there. So questions for me, anybody?
A quick question on the cafeteria. Could you get that slide? There's a bullet point that says seating areas will be cleaned and sanitized between groups, but it looks like from the times listed there, 7th, 6th, and 5th grade, there's a lot of overlapping between those groups. So how do you plan to sanitize between groups when they're overlapping with one another?
So we have always done that. That's not a new thing. They leave at different times and that section is cleaned and sanitized. So for example, the 7th grade is there from 12:20 to 12:50. That gave the time between the second high school group and them arriving to be able to do that. And there's oh, I'm sorry, that's Mrs. Owens. The same thing as you move down through that list, the cafeteria staff has always taken care of that along with the administrators that are there on lunch duty. So that is really sanitizing between the groups is not a new thing. We do that every time.
Any other questions for Wabash Middle School and Mike?
Thank you guys. I appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Mike. Kyle.
Okay, and once again, I'll just touch on the points that are probably specific to the high school because there is a lot of consistency with what the other buildings had talked about. One of the unique things about the high school level is most of our students do transport themselves, whether it be walking, driving themselves, riding with a parent, riding with another student. And so there is a huge difference in the times in which students are arriving. We're going to encourage those students who are transporting themselves to not arrive to the school before 8:20. It's not uncommon for us to have a lot of students in the hallways prior to 8 o'clock. Students use that time to use our Wi-Fi to catch up with homework the night before, whatever. And so we're going to encourage those ones who are responsible for getting themselves to school to kind of delay that if at all possible, just so that we're not having a lot of students there before we need them, just to help increase those opportunities for social distancing. Also, breakfast typically was served at the middle school cafeteria. We will not be doing that this year. So when our students arrive, they will not be coming through the middle school in the morning. They will not be getting their breakfast in the middle school cafeteria. All of that will take place out of the Wabash High School Cafe. And so this will be the first time we're really serving breakfast for an entire year out of our own building. Students will have, classrooms, hallways, cafe for the seating for those things. And, we're really going to depend on our students to use, practice good, safe practices with the social distancing or wearing of masks in the hallways. So that is something we're going to continue to encourage, make sure we have signage up to promote that as well. So if you want to scroll down to the hallway procedures, once again, just like with the middle school, we opted to do away with that kind of structured 5-minute passing period. We want students moving from one classroom to the next classroom instead of just socializing in the hallway. The exceptions, if they need to stop at their locker, restroom, or a water station, that can be done during this time. But the congregating in the hallways, we're going to try to reduce that as much as possible. Classroom procedures, once again, these are consistent with the other buildings, and so those should all look very familiar to you. And then lunch procedures, we have 2 lunch periods, and they are separate. There is a gap in between as students are moving back and forth. One of the unique changes that we made is that we will have grab and go options out of our high school cafe. We have not served lunch out of the cafe for a long time, but that reduces the number of students who would be going over to the middle school to get food. So the cafe will be open for both lunches. We will be utilizing both parts of the Wabash Middle School cafeteria, and thank you to the Wabash Middle School group, because we were trying to figure out our 11th, 12th, and 8th graders all eat in that same time frame, and normally they were all in the cafeteria together. And so the middle school making some accommodations to move their find another space for their 8th grade really allowed us to spread our students out and practice social distancing during that time. So we will have both parts of the middle school cafeteria as well as our own cafe. And once again, students will have assigned seating areas during this time to help us with the tracing if we do have a positive test. End of the school day, once again, our students, a lot of them transport themselves. And so we do have buses are scheduled to be there by 3:30, but we will be dismissing students via PA to either head out to their own car or some of them walk. And so they'll be leaving that way as well. So I think that is our last slide, maybe. I did want to just touch to go back to that Heartland piece. That was a really good question on whether a student, and I know it doesn't have to do with this reopening, but it was talked about already with a student doing online education and Heartland. With the new graduation requirements, Heartland satisfies that pathway criteria, and that's not something that we can really replicate in our own building. And so that is kind of the justification or why we wanted to make that opportunity available for our students if they choose online, but still are choosing to go to Heartland Career Center. We felt like that was necessary as a part of them meeting their graduation requirements. So, any questions?
Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you.
I think to, again, thank all the building administrators and all the people behind them, just like the cafeteria that worked on those plans. But I think Kyle makes a really good point. I've heard this with athletics, and I've heard this with Heartland a little bit. Like, so we would allow this, but they're still going to be exposed. All of the plans, if your child is going to go back to school, it's only minimizing risk. And I think that's important to point out to all our families. This is very fluid, and the only absolute guarantee would be is if you do choose the online school and stay at home. And maybe everybody else stay at home too. So I don't know if there is an absolute, but I think families got to make the best choices for each individual. I feel like our team put together options, choices. People like choices, and I think they're pretty comprehensive plans in order to minimize the risk of COVID exposure. And then we have, I feel like, very comprehensive plans on how we would move forward once that exposure does occur. So again, thank you to all of them. I'm asking the board tonight to approve what has been presented. With that being said, I'm in constant conversation with Dr. Rowe at the Wabash County Health Department, as well as InGuard, and we will continue to move forward and on a day-to-day basis as we work to keep all our kids safe.
I've got one question, not necessarily about what was presented here, but we have the facility that Ivy Tech uses,
Yes.
which is our responsibility to maintain. What is being done at that facility in conjunction with it being used?
Yeah, and so that facility is following the same guidelines in the capacities that are being overseen by us. Obviously, we have Work One, and the space they're renting, they're responsible for. Our students aren't there, but in the spaces that would follow these same guidelines that Wabash High School is following.
Will there still be the tutoring at?
At this point, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Other questions? All right, no other questions. All in favor of approving the reopening plan, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item C, approve recommendation to adopt the attached policy on pandemic, epidemic events, and the use of face masks. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
A motion, do I have a second?
Second.
And a second. Discussion.
Again, this is the policy. I had Mr. Tandy look over it. And this is the policy that the state of Indiana, in order to get those 1,500 plus masks, this is the only requirement. And the requirement is really highly encouraged across the district, the use of mask usage. That's it. It's not even a mandatory requirement. So
Questions? Okay, all in favor of approving the policy, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item D, approve recommendation for the following fiscal year-end fund transfers. Number one, from Fund 3250 Medicaid State Reimbursement to Fund 0300, operations for reimbursement of professional services in the amount of $10,961.47. From Fund 6400 CCDF, On My Way Pre-K to Fund 0101 Education for reimbursement of 2019-2020 non-special ed preschool salaries in the amount of $23,742.50. From Fund 0300 Operations to Fund 2045 Teacher Exchange Fund to take care of the negative balance of $229.88. From Fund 0101 Education to Fund 3750 Performance-Based Awards to take care of the negative balance of $21.09. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Discussion.
yeah, I want to take this opportunity, since majority of this is dealing with preschool. Preschool is not a state funded program. It is K-12. We receive revenue from the state of Indiana for each child. Preschool is not that case. And so when we decided to make that LH Carpenter, an early childhood learning center, we decided to bring a director over there and bring Mrs. Wilson. One of the charges to her was make this a viable program, make this sustainable financially. And I just want to commend Kathy for her work in doing that. I want to commend Mr. Stone. They've worked very hard. That Medicaid reimbursement, I'm very proud of that, because in addition, we've said this before, we started that. We went to Wabash Miami area program and said, hey, we want to be able to do this. These are the vendors who can do this. This is the one we would like to go with. And because of Kathy's efforts in champion that, not only did we bring in extra money to be able to help fund our programming, but the rest of Wabash Miami area program did it as well. And so I feel like we increased educational or early childhood education opportunities throughout Wabash County and in Miami County as well. So just want to bring that up.
All those in favor of approving the transfers, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item E, approve recommendation for the following changes to bus driver pay for the 2021 school year. Drivers will have pay spread out over 26 pays. Regular route pay raised from $69.31 to $75.
So moved.
A motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion, second, discussion.
We haven't had increases in a while, and obviously we are in a competitive marketplace. And so I know Ms. McBride worked with Mr. Stone on coming up with these prices to make us more competitive. And I believe, and it looks like Shannon's still around too, she might be able to say, but I believe they wanted to go to that year-round pay as opposed to just when school's in session. Anything else you want to say about that, Shannon?
No, it's more of a hiring tool too. Other districts around are year-round pay, and so that was a couple of times I'd heard the reason why they decided to go elsewhere. So we wanted to be able to compete with that.
Thank you for your advocacy. Thank you, Ms. Stone.
The pay brings us in line with surrounding
Yeah,
districts.
yeah.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of approving the recommendation, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item F, approve the attached 2020-2021 transportation handbook.
So moved.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion second, discussion.
The real changes in this handbook are related to COVID, and so we've already gone over those.
All those in favor of approving the transportation handbook, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Item G, approve recommendation to hire Lou Studio to drive Bus 20 beginning the 2020-2021 school year upon completion of training.
So moved.
A motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is second, discussion.
Welcome, Mr. Studio. Thank you.
All those in favor of approving the hire, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item H, accept resignation of Susan Height as WCS Cafeteria Office Manager effective July 31st, 2020.
So moved.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
I don't know, and maybe I would defer to Jordan on whether we need a revision or not. Ms. Height is actually retiring and not resigning, which is significant difference in benefits. And so I don't know if we need a revision to change that verbiage from resigning to retirement.
Yeah, if you want to make the motion.
Okay. I don't know who made the motion.
I did.
Rhonda did.
I move that we change the designation from resignation to retirement for Susan Height.
I'll approve it second.
Okay, so you're moving that we accept that motion with that
Did I say it right? Yeah.
All those in favor of approving with the revision, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item I, approve the following coaches for the 2020-2021 school year. There's a list of them. Take a motion to approve them as a group.
So moved.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is second, discussion.
Obviously, they will all have their background checks. If not, I believe everybody on this list already has. And I certainly want to thank each and every one of them for committing to our kids and our programs.
All those in favor of approving the coaches, say aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item J, approve Dr. Andrew Glasscock as pre-nursing studies instructor at Wabash County Community Learning Center for the 2020-2021 school year pending credentialing approval of Ivy Tech Fort Wayne. Compensation will be paid through external grants.
So moved.
A motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is second, discussion.
Yeah, and I just want to, this is a great example of, in the last few weeks, we've had some developments at Wabash County Community Learning Center that we oversee, as well as with our global citizenship programming, and in both those cases, and I would say also the early childhood programming as well with Ms. Wilson. In all those cases, we've built out capacity to do more, and this is an example of Mr. Blossom going out there. We've had sort of a rotating door with our anatomy and physiology dual credit programming through Heartland Career Center. And we feel like that Dr. Glasscock, who's in our community, is somebody who will be here to stay. Josh went after this individual. I think they can expand our health science programming. And then Josh also went after external funding to be able to pay for this. So again, this is creating capacity for not only our children, but children throughout the Heartland Career Center community. And we're able to do it through alternative revenue sources. So thank you to Mr. Blossom, and welcome to Dr. Glasscock. Glad to have him aboard.
All those in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item K, approve the attached new and withdrawal students prorate schedules for the 2020-2021 school year.
So moved.
Have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion second, discussion.
Yeah, I just want to applaud Mrs. Esslinger for her work on this, the work and certainly our buildings and our department heads, and as we look at course fees and prorated schedules, there's a lot that goes into that, and starting with Ms. Esslinger, started making this available on our website. So for transparency of what parents are paying and the prorate in case they end up leaving or going somewhere early. So Thank you.
All those in favor of approving the new schedule, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item L, approve the retirement of Jeannie Cooper as library aide at Wabash High School effective at the end of the 2019-2020 school year.
So moved.
A motion, do we have a second? Second. Motion, a second, discussion.
There have been never been a recommendation that I've ever put forth that I kind of want the board to vote down. But this is one. Jeannie Cooper is special individual with Wabash City Schools. When I think of tribe culture that people want in this district, I think of Jeannie. Nobody, there's maybe a handful of people that they're everywhere. You turn the corner and they're working on something different. We always say nobody is irreplaceable. I think Jeannie Cooper is irreplaceable. I want to thank her for her time and service to Wabash City Schools. Ms. Cooper's done so much more than be that library paraprofessional. Not only has she been instrumental in all the library services, including artist lecture series and book clubs, she's been a driving force behind the best of the best. I mean, she has been our best of the best program, and it's one of our premier programs, and probably one of the first where we really reached out across the county. And so all county schools are involved in it, and they're housed. Historically, they've been housed across the street in the Charlie Creek Gardens house. But that program doesn't happen without Jeannie. She's an artist. She's a mom. She's a grandma. She's pretty dynamic. I think about Jeannie and her work on the Wabash Athletic Hall of Fame, Hall of Distinction. She's been a dear friend and committed servant to this community for a long time. I hope we find a capacity to keep her involved if she's so willing, but she certainly has earned retirement, and I wish her only the best moving forward. So if you want to vote her down.
Does that mean she has to stay if we vote her down?
Yeah, I think so. But no, for Jeannie, we probably should try to pass that. But she's special.
All those in favor of approving the retirement, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item M, accept resignation of Tyler Karst as the entrepreneur and personal finance teacher at Wabash High School, effective at the end of the 2019-2020 school year.
So moved.
A motion, do we have a second? Second. Motion and a second, discussion.
Certainly want to thank Tyler for his time in service. He came to us after the first quarter last year. He and I had talked for years about if there was an opportunity with Wabash City Schools, he would be interested, and it seemed like we were always missing. And he came in and served this past year very well for us. I'm happy for Tyler. He's taken a position. He had been working at the Y part-time for a long time, and so he's going to take a full-time position there at the YMCA. I only wish him the best. Again, he's somebody that's committed to our community and certainly a servant to all. So thank you to his time and service. And again, I wish him the best.
What are our plans with that program?
So we're hoping some of our numbers were down, and so Mr. Whelan and I talked. I've talked to mentors. So actually, Mr. Tandy's one of our mentors too. Mr. Beecham, Mr. Renbarger, Mr. McCann. Talked to both Parker and Ty about the possibility of, between our mentors and maybe some administrative help, we could facilitate that without hiring a full-time teacher right away. Whatever we do, we want to continue to build that program. It's been very successful to us. We just got to make sure, and again, I don't want to just move in a direction just to put a person in there. it's entrepreneurship, and it can be met. You experienced this, your child experienced it, my child experienced it. These kids met in the morning, they met at lunch, they met different places and times. We think maybe we can do something different with that, and maybe even save a little money moving forward.
So for the kids that were in the program, we do continue.
Yes, we're
Plan to
going
continue
find a way,
offering it
yes.
this fall.
Yeah, in fact, I would like to build it out for more than the kids that are currently enrolled. I'd like, in my conversations, we talked about going back to our students the first week or two during advisory and really promoting it. And again, maybe these kids can do this distance ed, online, something kind of unique, because it is a really good program. And we have a lot of entrepreneurs that are willing, I think, in this community to spend, not a full-time job, but from time to time to be able to help kids out and learn a business model and see that there's potential to start a business and live and work in Wabash, Indiana.
What about the personal finance class?
It's going to be shelved for now. Yeah.
Just temporarily?
Well, that's the hope.
All right, no other questions, and all in favor of accepting the resignation, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item N, approve recommendation to hire William Chittenden to teach Japanese at Wabash High School, Wabash Middle School at a salary of $39,830 beginning the 2020-2021 school year.
So moved.
A motion, do we have a second? Second. Motion, a second. Discussion?
So I mentioned earlier, Mr. Blossom was able to go out there and secure funds outside of our state revenue. Same thing for Mrs. Delgadillo. Obviously, as we've built out these exchange programs with Japan, Yokohama, we wanted to be able to offer, and we've wanted to be able to offer an additional foreign language for some time. And this is that opportunity. Mrs. Delgadillo went out there and secured a $30,000 grant to be able to offer this. We'll have funding for 2 years. After that, we have 2 years to work through it. And my hope, and again, Mr. Mattern and Mr. Whelan did this interview process with Mrs. Delgadillo, and they were very pleased with Mr. Chittenden and his experiences, and feel like he's an individual that can really grow a program. And so, that's going to certainly be his charge, to go out there and build this Japanese language program and make it successful, so that we can continue to grow that and create those experiences for our kids.
All those in favor of approving the recommendation, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item O, approve the following ECA changes. Resignation of Bill Benish as Key Club sponsor, auditorium manager Mark Neville, director of Project Lead the Way Justin Denny.
So moved.
A motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion.
Yeah, and we certainly want to thank Mr. Benish for his time and service for Key Club. He was there from the beginning. Certainly an advocate for Key Club and building service projects, service opportunities for our kids at Wabash High School. Really appreciate Bill for that. And thank you to Mr. Neville and Mr. Denny for stepping up and taking on those positions.
All those in favor of approving the changes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item P, approve Alyssa Span for the combined WHS, WMS in-school detention position at an hourly rate of $13 beginning the 2020-2021 school year.
So moved.
A motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion?
Yeah, welcome Ms. Span to Wabash City Schools. She's got big shoes to fill. Jacqueline Hawley was in this capacity for several years before she was able to go on and finish her degree. And so we certainly welcome and wish her the best of luck.
All those in favor of approving the recommendation, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item Q, accept resignation of Clara Castano as DLI teacher at OJ Neighbors effective June 21st, 2020.
So moved.
A motion, do we have a second? Second. Motion is second, discussion.
Well, since Clara is now back in Spain, that's probably a good thing that we accept this and pass this. I want to again thank Clara for the courage and the time that she committed to Wabash, Indiana. Again, this is a program that I'm very proud of. We had Marie Kaufman was actually the parent that came forward, had experience with a dual language immersion program in Indianapolis before they came to Wabash, and she sought me out and said, "Hey, can we make it happen?" We find the yes, right? That's one of the dispositions that make us different at Wabash City Schools. And a lot of people worked really hard in making this happen and making this successful. And nobody did more than Clara. She was that first teacher of the program, and she came from Spain, a large metropolitan area in Spain, to Wabash, Indiana, and she committed 3 years to our kids and this program. And I really thank Clara for doing so. As a international teacher, someone who does not speak English primarily, coming to Wabash, Indiana could be a challenge. I think we have a very welcoming community, but again, building bilingualism in Wabash is a challenge. And she had I think she was brave, and I thank her commitment for sticking through those 3 years for the consistency. And so I will always be grateful for Senorita Castaño.
All those in favor of accepting the resignation, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item R, accept resignation of Crystal Van Treese as paraprofessional at OJ Neighbors, effective at the end of the 2019-2020 school year.
So moved.
A motion, do we have a second?
Yeah, and
We need a second.
oh, sorry.
Motion, second, discussion.
Did we get him? We got a
Yes,
second?
we did.
Okay. Starting to glaze over a little bit. Yeah. Miss Treese actually came to us. She originally was with the Bone Center and worked with our kids through that capacity. And then she did a great job through the Bone Center. And so we hired her because we knew she did a great job. And unfortunately, she's moving on. We definitely thank her for her time and service to Wabash City Schools and our kids, and wish her the best in the future.
All those in favor of accepting the resignation, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item S, accept resignation of Erica Cordes as social worker at OJ Neighbors, effective July 23rd, 2020.
So moved.
A motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is second, discussion.
Yeah, Ms. Cordes, I believe, is going to be taking on a community advocate position at Heartland Career Center. As you know, the Cordes family runs a berry farm here in this community, and certainly wish her the best and thank her for her time and service.
All those in favor of accepting the resignation, say aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item T, accept resignation of Constance Jason as paraprofessional at OJ Neighbors, effective at the end of the 2019-2020 school year.
So moved.
A motion, do we have a second? Second. Motion is second, discussion.
Yeah, we thank Ms. Jason for her time and service, and wish her the best.
All those in favor of accepting the resignation, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item U, approve retirement of Gail Buzzard as WCS dental hygienist, effective June 26th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second, discussion.
Yeah, I sat down with Miss Buzzard not too long ago, and she it was really inspiring. She was very proud of the work she had done over the number of years as our dental hygienist, and was looking towards retirement, and maybe all of this COVID business kind of expedited it a little bit. But I wish her the best in retirement and thank her for her time and service with Wabash City Schools.
All those in favor of approving the retirement, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Item V, approve recommendation to hire Amanda Scholl to teach DLI summer school at an hourly rate of $13 per hour for up to 4 hours per week from June 15th to July 31st, 2020.
So moved.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and second, discussion?
Welcome, Ms. Scholl. She's been a DLI parent, and she's done good work in helping organize and support some of our teachers. I know she helped organize, I believe, some of the going away parties that we had for Clara. And so thank her for filling this capacity this summer.
All those in favor of approving the hire, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item W, approve the attached course fees for the 2020-2021 school year. OJ Neighbors, Wabash Middle School, and Wabash High School.
So moved.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion second, discussion?
And these have all been vetted. Building principals have worked with their department heads and team leaders in putting these together. And they're in line with what we've done in the past.
All those in favor of approving the course fees, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item X, approve the following online instructors at OJ Neighbors for the 2020-2021 school year. All positions will be paid at a rate of $750 per semester, $65 per student per 9 weeks. Kindergarten, Carrie Mertz. First grade, Angel Hostetler. Second grade, Michaela Duzan. Third grade, Stacy Fry. Fourth grade, Jen Lane.
So moved.
Motion, or do we have a second? Motion second, discussion.
So we've talked a lot about COVID and reopening schools. Again, I want to step back and say we did a survey in our community, and I want to thank all the parents that participated in that. And as I mentioned, about 14% of those responding said they wanted online school, which we felt would amount to what, 200 potentially. Currently, I was just looking at some numbers. I had Mrs. Kugler print out numbers, and out of the 603 individuals registered so far, 53 have chosen online. And so under that 200 at this point, but if you play that out, it won't be too far under that. 53 people at 7,000 per student is a significant amount of revenue that we want to be able to capture. And like I said before, we want options for parents, and so went to our faculty and we came up with these numbers. And felt like it's at least a start. And we'll see what this year brings. It's very fluid. I want to thank down the road here, you're going to also approve for the middle school and high school as well. I want to thank all of these teachers who have the courage to jump in the water. I feel like this may be more than just dipping their toe. I think they're just jumping off the end. And I think that takes some courage. And I look forward to seeing how it all plays out. I think it'll be very good. They're currently working on building these programs. This is why I think it's different than what our families experienced in the spring. They're working currently on building out the entire semester right now, as opposed to while they're flying the plane in the air. So thank you to them. And any questions?
All right. All those in favor of approving the online instructors at OJ, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item Y, approve maternity leave request dates of September 24th, 2020 to January 3rd, 2021 for Heather Mickelson.
So moved.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion second, discussion.
Congratulations to Heather and her family.
All those in favor of approving the maternity leave, say aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item Z, approve recommendation to hire Carrie Mertz to cover the maternity leave for Heather Mickelson from September 24th, 2020 through the end of the first semester.
So moved.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is second, discussion.
Ms. Mertz has served in several capacities at Wabash Middle School and served very well. And so certainly welcome her to OJ Neighbors to serve in capacity of Mrs. Mickelson's maternity leave.
All those in favor of approving the recommendation, say aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item AA, approve recommendation to hire Shane Smith for the position of social worker at OJ Neighbors beginning with the 2020-2021 school year at a starting salary of $34,000.
So moved.
The motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is second, discussion.
Yeah, so Mr. Smith will be filling Mrs. Cortis's position. Mr. Smith worked the last year with Bowen Center in a very similar capacity, but just with students receiving those Bowen Center services. And so I know that Mrs. Philippi and Mrs. Tracy were happy with his work, and were able to see it firsthand. And then I know I talked personally with the director of the Bowen Center, who said he's one of his best. And the Bowen Center oftentimes does lose just due to the nature of the job. And so he didn't resent me too much, but so.
All those in favor of approving the recommendation, say aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes. Item BB, approve recommendation to hire Amanda Stewart for the PE position at OJ Neighbors beginning the 2020-2021 school year.
So moved.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and second, discussion.
Not unlike Mr. Smith, Ms. Stewart has worked with OJ via the YMCA through the Spark program. And so it's not as though we weren't aware of the quality of work. We saw it firsthand. And so we welcome her in the capacity of the PE position at OJ.
All those in favor of approving the recommendation, say aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item CC, approve recommendation to hire Michelle Carrillo as DLI paraprofessional at OJ Neighbors beginning the 2020-2021 school year.
So moved.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is second, discussion.
Yeah, welcome, Senora Carrillo.
All those in favor of approving the recommendation, say aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item DD, approve recommendation to hire Aubrey Davis as paraprofessional at OJ Neighbors beginning the 2020-2021 school year.
So moved.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is second, discussion.
Ms. Davis will be taking Ms. Van Treese's position, and just welcome her to Wabash City Schools.
All those in favor of approving the recommendation, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item EE, approve recommendation to hire Christy Briney as paraprofessional at OJ Neighbors beginning the 2020-2021 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, discussion.
And Ms. Briney will take Ms. Jason's position. And we certainly welcome her to Wabash City Schools.
All those in favor of approving the recommendation, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item FF, approve recommendation to accept the grant check of $15,000 from the Lee M. Sundheimer Foundation for the purchase of playground equipment for LH Carpenter Early Learning Center.
So moved.
Motion, do we have a second? Motion and second, discussion?
Yeah, and this, I want to thank certainly the Leah M. Sundheimer Foundation. They have given us tremendous amount of funding over the years, especially to meet some of our most at risk populations. And secondly, I want to thank Lori Gunderman because she has worked diligently at securing these funds. Again, finding the yes. She's somebody who's going to find a way. She knows there's that need, and Lori has been instrumental, and I certainly want to thank Kathy as well. So continue to grow that playground equipment over there, because we're going to continue to grow the kids over there.
All those in favor of approving the recommendation, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item GG, accept resignation of Tristan Viger as the before and after school care aide at LH Carpenter effective June 30th, 2020.
So moved.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is second, discussion.
Yeah, Ms. Viger is a Wabash alum, and she is pursuing education as a career. She did a phenomenal job, I know, for Kathy, and our hope is that once she finishes up her degree, we'll bring her back. And I think that's Ms. Viger's desire as well. So wish her the best.
All those in favor of accepting the resignation, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item HH, approved transfer of Katina Schramm from paraprofessional at OJ Neighbors to paraprofessional at LH Carpenter at her regular rate beginning the 2020-2021 school year.
So moved.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is second, discussion.
Yeah, Ms. Schramm drives a bus for us as well, and that won't change. We certainly want to thank her for her time and service at OJ, and wish her the best on this transfer.
All those in favor of approving the transfer, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item II, approve the attached updates to athletic handbook for the 2020-2021 school year.
So moved.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is second, discussion.
The biggest change in the athletic handbook is really that online piece. That's new to us. If you look at what our policy is for homeschool students, we require homeschool students to participate in at least 3 classes on campus. This first year of online school, we're not requiring any on campus, and they're allowed to participate. But again, it's got to be our online programming, not somebody else's. Whereas homeschool could be anybody's. And so that's the differentiation.
So we still require homeschool to take classes on campus. They can't take 3 classes online.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All those in favor of approving the updates, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Approve the following program fees at LH Carpenter for the 2020-2021 school year. 1, Little Apache's Dual Immersion Preschool, $300 a month. Little Apache's Preschool Without Assistance, $250 a month. Little Apache's Preschool with Assistance, $100 flat fee. Before and after school care, $100 a month.
So moved.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion, second, discussion.
Yeah, and I just want to thank Kathy, and I see, Kathy, you're still with us. I don't know if you want to weigh in at all on the fees, but Kathy works with Shelley and Matt and in the budget of LH Carpenter to make sure that, again, it's fiscally sustainable.
I am. And we also had several families, because we're a level 3, that were able to tap into that on my way pre-K grant and the CCDF as well. I think we ended up having, right now, I think we have a total of 5 families. We had several families. I bet I've done 20 applications, but it is a lot of red tape that they go through, and they're very picky on them. But we did have 5 that came out with that. 2 of the families actually were able to take advantage of the dual immersion, which they wouldn't have been able to had they not got that grant. So a lot of positives came out of that level 3 being able to have the opportunity to do the On My Way Pre-K grant and CCDF. So
And you were able, again, to achieve, we were able to participate in that because of level 3 paths to quality.
correct. Correct.
All those in favor of approving the fees, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item KK, approve the following online instructors at Wabash High School for the 2020-2021 school year. All positions will be paid $750 per semester and $65 per student per 9 weeks. Ryan Carmichael, Government and Economics. James Burns, Biology. Matt Mendock, Integrated Chemistry, Physics. Kyle Kelsheimer, English 9, Aaron Sapusik, English 10, Lauren Millspaw, English 11, Jake Stevens, Algebra 1, Christian Grindle, Math 10.
So moved.
A motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, discussion?
Again, I want to thank each and every one of them. And I know these are opportunities to maybe get our teachers some extra money as well. I like to look at it that way, but they certainly are going to put a lot more time, sort of like our coaching. You know, our coaches, we pay our coaches, but the amount of time they put into it probably doesn't equal what it's worth. And so, you know, I know each and every one of these individuals, and they are very dedicated to what they do and the education they're going to deliver. And so I just appreciate them for their courage and commitment to do this out of the gate. And our commitment to them, and I think our commitment as a board should be that, you know, as we see how this rolls out, we may have to adjust numbers, we may have to add classes and those types of things down the road.
All those in favor of approving the high school online instructors, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And one abstention. All right. Motion passes. Item LL, approve the following online instructors at Wabash Middle School for the 2020-2021 school year. All positions will be paid at a rate of $750 per semester and $65 per student per 9 weeks. All courses are 2-semester courses. Carrie Mertz, 5th grade. Jill Beals, English 1 and English 2. Rachel Hovermel, Math 1. Kim Hodson, Social Studies 1. Brody Cook, Science 1. Justin Denny, Math 2. Zach Winrich, Social Studies 2. Ryan Evans, Science 2.
So moved.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and second, discussion.
Again, as I've said for the OJ and high school, same thing. Thank these individuals.
All those in favor of approving the online instructors at the middle school, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item MM, approve the extension of the following administrator contract salaries for the 2020-2021 school year will remain the same as 2019-2020.
I would move we table all administrator contract changes.
Second.
We have a motion to table all administrator contract extensions and a second discussion. All those in favor of approving the tabling of the administrator contracts, say aye. Aye. Opposed? It's been tabled. Items from superintendent.
Yeah, I want to thank Stephanie Veit from Hagerman for joining us. Thank Hagerman for their updates and for all their work on the construction management. As you know, we have multiple projects going on simultaneously, and we sought out a construction management organization really that fit us, and Hagerman has done that. With COVID, there's been a lot of challenges, and there's been a lot of work sites across the state that have been shut down, and we are still on track for all of our projects. And so I just commend Hagerman. Certainly want you to know that, Stephanie, and take that back to everybody,
Thank you.
Brad and everybody.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Happy to be part of it.
And I do want to remind people that Adam and Stephanie from the get-go, when we first started doing our presentations 18 months ago, were showing up. And so they worked really hard for this work too. And I appreciate that. I want to talk, again, thank you to everybody that participated. Thank you to our administrators and all those people that worked on our building plans. I feel like we have really comprehensive plans. They'll be fluid. They'll change. But I feel like we're doing everything in our power to keep our kids and our staff safe as we move forward. AP scores. So for a second year in a row, we saw increases in our AP scores. I wanted to mention this for a lot of reasons. Academically, I think our increase in rigor, We also saw the most number of students graduating with the statewide transfer general education core, 20% of the class of 2020. And then you see our AP scores growing as well, which are a standardized test. So I think it speaks volumes to our teaching, our instruction, in the work that's being done. I want to commend the board too. We talk about finding the yes. We talk about innovation being one of our core principles. We started 3 years ago compensating our staff for passing grades and AP tests, and then this is our second year for compensating students for passing tests. And so I believe all of that plays a role in this work. And so thank you to all our AP teachers, and congratulations to our AP students. Graduation plans. I don't know if Mr. Whelan's still hanging around, but I want to at least thank him and his graduation committee. I know he's talked to students and parents and staff about how to best honor our class of 2020, and I think we've got a really solid plan. So I'll let him take the lead on that. As with everything else now, it's very fluid. And I think we have a really good opportunity on the 31st to honor our kids from the class of 2020. Summer school, this is the most comprehensive summer school we've ever offered, K-12, and it has been up and running. So to a certain extent, we are back in session. I want to commend our staff and our students. Everything I hear from summer school as well as driver's ed that's been going on is that everybody is wearing masks and complying with that when social distancing cannot be achieved. And so again, I think the point from our administrators tonight was we're not going to make an issue of it. We're going to create scenarios where we're going to keep our kids safe. And when they cannot be kept safe, we'll figure out alternative options. Cross country team left today to go up to Traverse City. I think that's the 5th year in a row that Mr. Evans, maybe 6th year in a row that Mr. Evans has taken them up there. And I know they're in for a treat. It's beautiful up in Traverse City, and Mr. Evans will make them work very, very hard. Certainly want to thank Ryan and all our coaches, as they have kind of been on the front lines of reopening school starting off this summer. We've talked a little bit about the enrollment update. We've received several transfers in already. If anybody is watching and they're wanting to transfer in, they're not currently in our system, I would encourage them to go to our website, the Wabash City Schools website, and there's an enrollment feature. If you are a past student, then you can do it through Skyward. That is where you would enroll. So school registration is up and running. Certainly want to thank Mrs. Owens and Mrs. Kugler and everybody who has worked on online registration. Wanted to thank Mr. Whelan, Mr. Blossom, and everybody that's working with the Rural Early College Network. That is still up and running with CEL. And we also have been asked to be a part of another grant opportunity to expand internet capabilities in rural situations. We know that probably 25% of our population is rural, and so sometimes internet capacity is not as good as it is when they're in the city. I want to congratulate our valedictorian, Taylor Kaufman, from the class of 2020. He is going to be headed off to Thailand on a mission trip for 2 years before going to school at BYU. So really excited for Taylor. I know because of all this COVID, he's kind of waiting around on visa. Same thing is for our dual language immersion program as we recruit teachers from Spain. Mrs. Delgadillo has been working again, not just locally. And again, I would applaud our mayor and other community leaders for writing letters. Mr. Kanya has helped to connect with Senator Banks on on a national level and the Department of State in order to try to open up those embassies and get some of those visas, work visas moving, because it's a struggle to get Spanish speaking teachers. Let's see, I know I had another update that I had asked Mr. McQuirt to give us an update from the class of 2020. As far as our students, we had several student athletes from this group that went on or are going on this fall to play collegiately. In boys basketball, Trenton Daughtry is headed to the Michigan Dearborn. Elijah Vandervelden is going to Wisconsin Stevens Point. In baseball, Callan Kelsheimer is headed off to Huntington. I'm guessing they're already starting, or
Not yet.
not yet. Okay. Jared Holly is off to Kankakee. Derek Vogel is going to be running cross country at IUK, along with Blakely Cole. Bea Carrillo is playing golf with Manchester. And did I miss anybody else for Stone?
It's not from last year.
No, last year's class. So great group. I also want to congratulate my son, Caleb Callahan. I wasn't going to put it in there. It feels a little biased, but he received the Hudson and Holland Scholarship from IU Bloomington. This is a renewable scholarship based on serving under represented population. And so this comes from some of his work with FCA and the mission trips. And so really proud of the class of 2020. I'm going to continue to highlight some of what they have done. And I also wanted to thank Mr. Maxwell and his work. Obviously, we have a lot of things in the air, and he is working throughout the summer. I guess that's the last thing I would say. We have a lot of people working hard this summer. We say it every year, school never really shuts down. But I think this year, especially for our administrators, as they're trying to lead these reopening plans, I don't think any of them have had a summer off. And so, they're not on a full year contract, but they have worked all year. And I want to thank them for their time and service. So I think that's it.
All right, no other questions for Mr. Callahan. Items from Chief Business Officer.
Hey, I'm good.
And from Mr. Stone. Okay. Items from visitors. Anything from
I'm good tonight. No, we're doing enrollment, and our numbers are looking wonderful. So excited for a new year to start.
Mr. Whelan, are you still with us?
Yeah, and I did want to, in this next 2 weeks, we are going to host graduation and prom. Our graduation plan did get approved by the health department this afternoon. I do want to follow back up with the venue just to make sure they're still on board before I release all those details. So hopefully early morning tomorrow, I'll be able to share out the graduation plans with all the graduating seniors and their family and friends, as well as the school board. So I would like to talk to the venue about that plan and make sure that they're still on board before I push all that information out.
All right. Items from board members. Rhonda?
I want to take a quick second and comment on Mrs. Cooper. She meant a lot. She means a lot to my daughter, Olivia, and I wish her well. And I just wanted her to know how much my family has appreciated her and all the work she did with the art program and her encouragement of my daughter. So best of luck to her.
Tony?
She's an example, leading example, of course, of a lot of good people here. Yeah. She's gonna be missed. I have nothing else.
Stephen?
Real quick, I know this week football camp's going on for young kids. Last week, I know Coach Evans and Coach Lloyd ran cross country camp for the kids. My kids were involved in that, and it's just nice to see high school, middle school coaches getting elementary school kids involved We have great coaches and great volunteers in our system. I mean, the high school kids that were the captains of the cross-country camp were wonderful. They're now heroes to my kids, and that's all it takes. Just to give the time to these kids. I appreciate that, and I appreciate riding bikes around and seeing all the buildings. It's just neat to be in the neighborhood and go by every day and see the changes on a daily basis. My parents were in town from out of state, and they were shocked. It's exciting. So, and even people around the county are just talking about how exciting it is to just be in town and see the extent of what we're doing. So.
And I too want to echo the comments made about Mrs. Cooper. I know she made an impact on my children as well, and she will be sorely missed. And I also want to thank again everybody that played a role in developing the reentry plan. I know that it's still fluid and things can change, but a lot of hard work has gone into putting this together and getting it approved, and I certainly appreciate everyone's efforts. And nothing else, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion
Seconds.
and second. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
I'll give you a second.